Chant God, welcome to my podcast.
No, I got invited. Thank you. I'm excited.
You are my childhood best friend. Known you for almost as long as I've been alive. So I'm introducing you to my audience today.
Which is actually crazy because I thought about that the other day. Like, I don't think I have any friends that are like that old in my life besides you.
I don't know how old you're talking about.
Oh, I'm 15.
Yeah,
I
like
don't.
what?
Yeah, I'm a child. But I was thinking about no, I don't have any friends from outside of being like anything outside of college besides you because I don't talk to anybody. Hometown.
Yeah, I think just you and maybe like literally one other childhood friend I speak to from where we grew up, but I don't even.
Yeah, no, but that's not.
Yeah.
I don't even know who that is. But like, I even know who that is. That's like such a small group.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm excited.
Yes, I wanted to introduce you to my audience because you are somebody who will definitely be a frequent visitor on the podcast. Love your insight. You're an amazing musician, creative. I don't even want to give you just a title because I consider you like a multi hyphenate. But for sake of introducing you to my audience, I'm going to present you as a musician.
Yes, because that's where I am.
Yes.
That's where I am currently. Yes, I am a musician. I started this journey with music maybe like a long time ago. Obviously, I used to be a choir director. I did pageants when I was a kid. But like I started doing music and like putting out music maybe like 2 years ago. And really like, something about the pandemic. The pandemic made me want to like, this sounds so cliche, but you see the world shut down and you see like time is like, it's like sand.
Right.
And you're looking around, you're like, wait a minute. And I'm like, wait, I'm not running out of time, but like life's happening. And you don't realize that life's happening until you're sitting in the house.
Right.
Not able to do anything. So I said, okay, you know what? I have to start like putting my good foot forward. And like, so then I started like getting into music. I was already in the scene, but like really getting in the scene and started working in a bunch of studios, doing some songwriting, doing some song placements, doing some song syncing, and trying to really just like put my foot in it. And I have really good records, and I think I have like a nice fan base now where like they like support me. You know what I mean?
Right.
So like I'm really comfortable being, like you said, introduce me as a musician now.
Yeah.
But I have worked with many other hats. Like I was a photographer, I was a graphic designer, to the stars.
Literally.
To the stars.
Fun fact, chant is a very vital part of my childhood because when I had my magazine, we would, work together. He would do graphics, photography. We would go to different events, coverage. So
Fashion weeks. Yep.
That is how long I've known Chant. Like
Mhm.
we're talking Girl Pez days. So when you speak of diving into music more heavily during COVID,
Right.
you've always been a musician your whole life. You've always naturally been a natural born creative. But like you said, you kind of went full steam with it during COVID. So
yeah. No, it became like imperative that I like write that narrative because graphic design, photography, like I still am doing people's websites present day.
Yeah.
So for select group. This is not
select customers.
Yeah.
Because you don't want people to just
I hate working that way. Like that whole like I'll do it. No, I'm good. But that's always gonna be like a part of me, like a little part of me, like visual stuff. But music's always been, that it's always been my passion. I've always written songs and like little things, and I was like, it's time to start putting music out. And like I was scared to do that, which is crazy because like now that I've done it and I see like an actual outpour of people supporting me, it's like it's like weird to watch that happen in real time when you're like thinking like I'm just gonna throw this little song out and see what happens, and then you see people like people sending me videos of them dancing, or they're in their cars, or like I have an actual video of somebody like they sent me the other day like doing a striptease to one of my songs, and I was like, mind you, didn't want to watch the whole video, but I was like, this is interesting to see like people's perspective of your music, from like on the outside. So yeah, that's definitely a great thing. But we have worked in a lot of spaces.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that the other day. Like we've worked with a lot of people intimately, not even like just passerby, like really worked intimately with people and worked on their campaigns and projects. And that prepared me for a lot of rooms that I've gone into. Just walking into a room and then seeing like, okay, you need to do X, Y, and Z before you get A, B, C, and how you're gonna maneuver through this space. So, shout out to our childhood because it was
Yeah,
like star-studded. It was fun.
it was. We had a very unique childhood. I feel like a lot of the experiences that we had, I consider it like a childhood internship,
At boot camp. Yeah,
boot camp,
very
childhood
much that.
internship.
Mhm.
So now that we're at this point now where we're full grown adults, like I think now more than ever, we know how to navigate this world. I cannot say it
The girls can't shake me.
you know what I
The
mean?
girls
At
can't
this
shake me.
point, we
Yeah.
have been through it all. Like we've seen it
Hmm.
inside and out. So, like you said, shout out to our childhood.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what I'm doing. I know where I want to be and exactly what I want to do. By the time this comes out, I've already made the move from East Coast to West Coast. I'm moving to LA.
Right.
So that's the next big like thing. Cause I'm just like ready. Like, New York is cute, but like we gotta like pivot.
Yeah, you gotta pivot. You gotta shake it up.
I'm excited because it's like new world. Like I'm just so excited for the West Coast. That's gonna be
Yes.
such a good time. But yeah. I'm trying to think what else. When I get to LA, one of the things I really want to do is get involved into visuals and like acting and like that's like a whole other monster that I don't think that's like one space I haven't like put my foot in. It's an exciting pond to be in.
Film and TV. Yeah.
God, it's such an exciting thing to even think about. Like
I know, right?
I see some of my friends who moved out there, they're like in commercials or in Netflix stuff. I'm just like, I need to be there. So I've made it happen. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I think part of the magic of living in LA is like I've said this to you before, it's the literal aspect that it's Hollywood.
Literally.
You have to go to Hollywood to make
to be in Hollywood. If you want to be on TV, like you have to be there.
Right.
And that's kind of like honestly, like that's like with anything. Like if you want to be in fashion, you want to be in certain things, you have to go to certain cities.
Right.
And if you want to be on TV, you can do TV from New York, you can, but the likelihood and the frequency, you got to be in LA. You have to just go jump and go do it.
They literally have lots dedicated to filming just movies or just shows versus like New York City. We know how much real estate is in New York City. They don't have like a bunch of like film lots and stuff.
It's not
they have a lot of film permits.
So they have a lot of things going on.
Streets of New York City, but it's more
different. Yeah. I feel like New York is fashion.
Yes.
You want to make it in the fashion world, bust down on New York. That's where you need to be. Or even if you could do music in New York, you can.
Yeah.
You can do music in New York. But like you want to make music and do film and like do like the big time silver screen. You want to do silver screen stuff, you need to go to LA. So that's the next move for me. I'm excited about that. And I don't know, 2024 is just like just turning into this thing. Like I can feel it like it's like this heat bubble inside of me. Like it's like revving up. I'm super excited about that. So
yeah. It's so exciting. There's nothing like moving to a new place. But I want to kind of go back to the music a bit. Talk to me about your music now. And you've been releasing like a string of singles. So talk to me.
So
and tell my audience about that.
I have a lot of music. And that's the crazy thing is like, I probably have like maybe like 400 songs that I have just been sitting on because I've been recording for the past 3 years and, writing for other people. But like you get a record and you go, I'm going to pocket this and you put it away. And I've just been strategically releasing music that I think my audience will like. And I have a project coming out. I don't know do I want to announce the name yet? I'm going to save the name, but I'm going to drop the project sooner than later. I want everyone to know it's going to happen probably this summer. But I was working closely with Blake Winters.
Shout out to Blake.
Shout out to Blake. And
amazing musician from Philly.
Amazing musician. Amazing producer, amazing engineer. And I also was working with Miles J from Milk Boy. So like those two helped me put my project together. Also with Kevin Rogers, again another great producer. So
dope.
I just have great people helping me put my project together. So I'm so confident in what I have to offer because there's just like the backing that I have is just so strong. They're just great musicians and they've helped me even like cultivate myself. Like I already knew I was a great musician, but like they've helped me just sharpen the way I go about things. And I just love being able to interact with like great musicians. So that's something I have planned. And I also have a couple visuals planned. So like I'm trying to do a visual film. And
I love
hopefully,
that.
yeah, I'm trying to do a visual film because I want, everyone's like, you need to release videos with everything. I'm like, no, I want to release a whole film with every song included. That way I can give somebody like an actual package. Like, here's what you're listening to. Here's what you're envisioning. So that's an exciting thing. And also, like, you already know, like, for me, music has always been this space where I haven't got to see myself. We have advents like Lil Nas X and Santana nowadays,
Yeah.
but even then, they're not R&B singers. They're, and we have Josh Lee. I don't know if is Josh Levi gay?
I don't know. Frank Ocean?
Okay, so you know what I mean? Like, it's like up in the air for those people, and like, which is fine. I'm not trying to force anyone, but
Or you're just talking about visibility.
Visibility is really crucial to me, and I feel like we're on the.
Wait, the guy from American Idol?
Clay Aiken?
No, the black guy.
I know who you're talking about. Who was Alex Newell?
No, the other one. He's the only other R&B actor.
You see, we're
it's gonna come to us after the interview.
Yeah,
who I'm talking
we're
about.
grasping at straws, but visibility is
not Devin or
there's.
Trayvon.
I do like Duran Bernard.
That's who I'm talking about.
Yeah, Duran Bernard.
Was he from American Idol?
I don't know if he's from American Idol.
Oh, okay.
I think maybe The Voice. Either way, Duran Bernard is amazing.
That's what I was talking about.
Amazing. Duran Bernard is amazing. But even visibility, like, we're grasping at straws to like pull artists out. Like, we just named maybe 4 people, but like, I want to fill in a space that is about visibility for Black gay men to see themselves in real time, because I feel like for so long it's always like a Frank Ocean. It's like, am I gay? Like, it's like
where they're not like the champions of.
Yeah,
they're not championing.
It's melodramatic. It's like melodramatic, and it's like
it's in the music, but like they're not really like championing it in real life.
Like,
not about that life.
They're not visible,
Yeah.
And I think that's what it is for me, where I want to be a real time visible thing. You know, I live in the Twitterverse. You already know that's my, I always say to you, like, the funniest place on earth is Twitter.
Right.
I live in the Twitterverse, and I will say the outpour that I've gotten from those people is like phenomenal. Like, they're carrying me every day. I wake up, I show you stuff. It's like, they're sending me this or they're sending me that, and I love your song of this, and they're shouting me out, and I'm like, I would have never. First of all, Twitter was not my thing.
Twitter was always your thing.
It's now my thing, but it wasn't my thing for years. Like, I was like an Instagrammer, like, you know what I mean?
For my audience that's watching at home, Chant has always been an internet personality. So whether it's Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, these same people have followed him from platform to platform since MySpace.
MySpace. No, they literally, when I was like too young to be on MySpace.
Right.
And they were following me from there. So I love when I get even now, like, I'll get a message and someone will be like, I've been following you since MySpace, when you used to post little covers in your bathroom.
Yeah.
And that to me is like, first of all, it's special, but it's also just like, you don't realize how far back people are following you from. Like, they're excited about your journey.
Yeah.
And like, that's, I used to see girls come up to, girls used to come up to you all the time and be like, Savannah, I've been watching you for years. And it's like, I don't know you, but I love that energy where someone like feels like they're in on the journey with you.
Right.
Love that. It's like a great experience. And it's one of the things that drives me to keep making music and to keep releasing. That's like part of my journey. But then, like I said, the other part of it is being visible, being an advocate, being present. Because, being gay is one thing, being Black and gay and trying to show up in Black spaces is a completely different ball game. So like, it's nice to be able to even just show my face, show up to these parties, show up to these rooms, be in these rooms, and like, hey, I do music, this, and like really just represent myself in a way that I don't see it. We're seeing it more frequently, but I don't see it as often as I would like to see it. You see how hip hop is, like, rap is like, anybody can be a rapper, like anyone. And I feel like I would like to see that same thing happen for singers. I would like to see that sort of diversity flow through. You get what I mean? Like, flow through the songstresses.
My question for you is, like, one of the things you said was, during COVID, that's when you really locked in on music and you were just like, I'm going to go full steam and really focus on you as a musician overall, like really separating yourself from like the creative projects you were doing and just like, all right, I'm focusing on music. What made you feel like, okay, I'm going to release music and I'm going to just like release a bunch of music? Because I think sometimes with like independent artists, they'll like release one song and
disappear.
Yeah, but I've noticed like one thing with you, you've just like kept the consistency and releasing a bunch of music. Because I feel like that's a lot of independent artists. It's hard for them to do
things.
That.
The important part, I think, of cultivating any sort of fan base. So like whether it's 10 people, 10,000 people, or it's 100,000 or 1,000,000, you have to keep people engaged based upon how many people you have and based upon buzz. So like I dropped one single in June. I dropped another one a couple months later. I dropped another one a couple months later. I dropped another one a month later.
Yeah.
I am trying to make sure people stay with me. People have short, like not even trying to call people stupid, but people have very short attention spans. So like you want someone to buy your product, keep them with you as long as possible. I think of music the same way I think of makeup. Girls will buy a lipstick product, right? But like if Fenty said tomorrow, like we're dropping new liquid lipsticks, you're going to go and like see what they're doing.
Right.
So I think, but if Fenty disappeared for 7 years and didn't drop anything new and just left the same products on the shelf, they're going to die out. We've seen that happen to brands. Like I was going to use other brands, but like Becca disappeared off the face of the earth because they weren't dropping new products. And I'm just using one example, but like you have to keep dropping new products. So I think also we live in the microwave age where like you see these rappers drop.
Something could be hot today and gone tomorrow.
They drop 1 million singles a month. It's like 2 singles a month. They're dropping song after song after song. Because you got to keep up.
Yeah.
You can't just be like, I dropped the song. It doesn't matter if your song is good. That's another thing. One thing I will say is people like to see consistency. They like to see brand recognition. And they like to see that you're somebody they can relate to. Your song could be trash. Like, honest to God, it could be terrible. But if someone feels like they can relate to you and you have a nice little hook and there's consistency there, you're going to gain a fan base. So I think the most important part about me for releasing things was, remember I said visibility was important. I have to drop music because I have to be being seen by the people in my community so that they feel like, okay, this person's dropping the music I like, and they're not just dropping a song just to drop the song. Like, no, I'm a musician. I'm an artist through and through and through and through. I'm not gonna stop. So like it's about identifying your brand, making sure your brand is present, and that people can tangibly say, oh, that person's this. So they look at me and they go, oh, he makes music. He's a singer. And that's why I've been dropping music so consistently. About to drop another song soon too. But coming soon. So that is like why I'm dropping so consistently. I need people to grasp that this is how you market. And obviously as the budget gets bigger, I'm just going to do more.
Yeah, for sure.
We just have to keep trekking, making it happen. So that's like that's my main reason for dropping.
Another thing is like you have one of the most prominent gay Black voices on Twitter. Or Black gay voices.
Yeah, I hear you. I will say, I think 2 things. I enjoy Twitter in a way that I've never enjoyed. That's why I was saying to you earlier, I've never enjoyed social media the way I enjoy Twitter. Because it's like, first of all, Twitter is so large and vast, but it's also like this microcosm where like something will happen on Twitter. You've seen it. Like you guys will send me something. I'll be like, they were talking about it on Twitter 6 days ago.
Yeah.
Where Twitter is like this microcosm where they all discuss ideas.
Yeah. I consider Twitter to be like the thought leader universe.
It is.
So like that's where a lot of ideas are actually written, like what we would say back in the day, written on paper. To me, if it's published into the Twitter space, an idea has been birthed.
Absolutely.
And then it trickles down into other platforms. But what's crazy is like working with musicians. You know how many musicians I work with that don't have Twitter accounts or are not active on Twitter, and they think that Twitter is like not important. But to this day, Twitter is the #1 news source online. I don't care what anybody says.
Twitter says what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's the first place news breaks because it's in words.
Because it's in real time also. Yeah. Like I think the most important thing about Twitter, and this is why I love Twitter more than anything else, is you do something on Twitter, if it goes viral, it's not going viral because likes happened over this several days. It's going viral
Because
because
people are talking about
it in real time. Such and such is tweeting this and quoting it and whatever. I love Twitter because one, it's hilarious. That's the first thing. It's the funniest space on the planet. But two, I keep saying this, visibility. It is the one place I will say I get to see all forms of people in real time discuss their ideas out loud. Good, bad, wrong, indifferent. But you get to see everybody talk.
Yeah.
And that's something that you don't get on the other platforms.
Not everybody's talking at once on the other platforms. A feed doesn't exist like that.
No. The other platforms are very much like you follow this account. So certain people will show up on that account. But like Twitter is, I could tweet out something derogatory and a person who doesn't follow me, doesn't know me, will comment on what I had said.
Yeah.
And that's why I like it, because it's a real it's an actual watering hole. It's a community hole to like pour ideas into. Sometimes people just talk into space. Obviously, Twitter, it's not for everyone, but it definitely, like you said, it is the thought leader of the world, and it allows people to speak eloquently. It's one of the few spaces I think, and I think this is what you were saying earlier. Black gay men are heard. Like, I get to talk on Twitter and like people hear what I have to say. Whether most of the time I'm just being silly, but
versus like real life spaces, sometimes your voice as a gay black man can be muted. You know,
exactly. So sometimes I'm just completely like passed over. Versus on Twitter, if I say something and it's well written enough, it's eloquent enough, and someone can see the details of what I wrote, that is passed around. So you can be heard and vocalized on Twitter. That's another reason why I love it, is because it is a media based. There's media, there's visuals and camera and stuff like that. But Twitter is a space where if you have thoughts that count, if your thoughts are well thought out and it counts, the world is yours. It's your oyster. You know what I mean?
Question for you. Do you feel like there is like a literacy level to using Twitter? Do you feel like only people with a certain vernacular and like level of literacy can use it? Or do you feel like it's like open to everybody to express their thoughts?
Okay, so I'm going to try to be as PC as possible. That's a dangerous question. But I will say on Twitter,
because we talked a lot about reading and writing. That's why I asked.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. But I will say on Twitter, the thing is, Twitter is like lunch table. It's like, you ever been in lunchroom and you see like unfriendly black hotties and like the nerds and the band geeks, and
you can very much see who's who.
Yes,
and what they are about based off of the way they're typing.
Yes, they all interact, but you can see like, just even based off you've been in the comments and you're like, this is a bunch of nonsensical people talking to each other, or you'll be like, very organized conversation. So it's like, I think it's open to everyone, but in the same breath, I'm also like, I don't even know how to say this, because I've seen ridiculous statements make their way to the shade room overnight, and then they're asking questions on dumb things. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
But then in the same breath, I kind of feel like sometimes it's clickbait. It's all like, it's just this like microcosm of promotion. And I think the conversations on Twitter, when they are good conversations, groundbreaking.
For sure.
But there's a lot of fodder. There's a lot of, there's a lot
for
of.
Sure. And I think also sometimes, because Twitter literally represents freedom of speech, sometimes users on Twitter walk, to me, a dangerous line of freedom of speech. Like, a topic that we don't really talk about in America is deplatforming. That's something that they talk about in Europe and UK primarily. Mm-hmm. The idea of, if somebody has a platform so large and they're using that large platform
for hate speech,
should we be able to mute them? Should we be able to turn them off? Look at Donald Trump, January 6th riots. Like
they shut him down.
They shut him down because they were like, you induced like violence at our state capitol because of your words.
Right.
So I think like that's also like an interesting idea when I think about Twitter, is like sometimes we're really looking like our founding fathers wanted freedom of speech, but like when I see Twitter, I'm like, wow, like I don't know, freedom of speech is a dangerous line.
So you're gonna holler. I saw a meme the other day where it was like maybe the 90s, and it was like a bunch of men standing around just talking in the street, like in front of their cars, and I quoted it and I was like, this is the original podcast. Like, this is the original bad pod. Just a bunch of men like reinforcing bad ideas amongst each other.
Right.
And I think
now they just have a microphone.
Now they have a mic and they're just talking. But there's definitely, I think that's always existed. Like you're saying, like there's always been people saying things. They just always want somewhere to say it.
Yeah.
And I think Twitter does allow them to do that. That's why I was saying like good, bad, right, wrong, indifferent. Yeah. Twitter allows people to go out there and be like crazy. Essentially like be their true selves or be crazy.
Yeah.
But do I think we should be able to take that from them? No. You want me to tell you why? I enjoy a good Twitter lashing. I hate saying that. I love going on there and seeing people whacking them. Yeah, I'd be like, whack them again. Say what you got to say. I love seeing, because sometimes I feel like
sometimes people can't see themselves.
They don't hear themselves. Yeah. Sometimes you need to hear that you're crazy or that you don't make any sense. Because without that, you know, people live in their bubble. They'll never hear anyone tell them they're wrong because the people surrounding them
are just reinforcing their ideas.
Thank you. Like I said, like those men on the street talking to each other and reinforcing bad ideas. They hang out birds of a feather. So you have to make sure. In Twitter, I think it also exposes people, like I said, to all people of all walks.
Right.
And even if you agree or you don't agree, you're still going to be exposed to an idea that you didn't think of. And I think it actually improves intelligence on some level.
Yeah.
It might take years for you to absorb that information, but you heard it, and that's the best part about it. And I also will say, like, I even though I'm not in this realm, I appreciate Twitter for the avenues in which it's created money for people, like
including yourself,
including myself. I paid fucking a nice check. Hold on, look at a nice little check.
You're not just over here talking to the airwaves.
All right, now I got a nice
talking
little
to the bank.
Okay, but I was gonna say, even just like I look at the way it blew up OnlyFans. It blew OnlyFans up.
Yeah. Like
it has allotted people a way of life where they can live real lives. People who might not have had jobs or might not have had, you know, maybe not have had skills in the sense of what we think of like everyday skills, but like they have money now because of Twitter. So like Twitter is honestly like, it's a big business. It's a machine.
Yeah, it is.
And like, not only is it the thought leader, but it's trying, I see it on its way to being the media capital of the world.
Yeah, I definitely think that's where it goes down.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. But I'm saying like, I could even
for
see
media.
Like, I'm saying, I can even see it like surpassing things like YouTube and like really going there, because Twitter is, like you said, like we said, it's a space that's live. It's in real time. You don't have to wait for your stuff to hit the algorithm. It depends upon how much the people around you support you. So it's just, I don't know, great space. Love Twitter. Funny as hell. It's just funny. Like, it's just, and that's the main reason I like it. Because, you know, I love to laugh. So it's just, I get on there and like, I work a job. So like, I just be like working and then be like hollering. Wow. So it's like a good time.
Yeah. I love Twitter. That. It's a good time. Mm-hmm. I love Black Twitter, and I also love white dry humor Twitter. It's like giving me Seinfeld humor on that side too. Yes. You know, they're usually like liberals.
Very Parks and Recreation over there.
Exactly, love Parks and Recreation.
Yes, very Parks and Recreation. My favorite Twitter, and this is a new Twitter. This is new. I will say my favorite Twitter right now is like, well, I shouldn't say this is my favorite, but it is one of my favorite places to be. My favorite place to be on Twitter is Black Gay Twitter, but specifically, there's a certain section of Twitter. It's like Barb Twitter. Not because I'm obsessed with Nicki Minaj, but just it's funny to see the way they rally behind her. You don't see this.
The psychology of it all, and like just like the fandom of it all.
You don't talk about that woman on Twitter. They will tear you up.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to just
see it happen in real time. They'll eat somebody up off a negative tweet about Nicki Minaj.
And then get your page deleted. Get all your pages deleted.
Dox you.
Found your home. Like it's crazy. It's like, it's almost, you need popcorn. When you see someone like attack Nicki Minaj on Twitter, you can watch her fans like literally take them down in real time. It's crazy. So like, love that space. I also love like, this is like a very niche Twitter, but Shea Butter Twitter is just like funny because it's like you said, Black Twitter is specific Black jokes that only Black Americans understand. So it's fun to watch that form of Twitter.
Yeah.
What I don't enjoy about Twitter is like the diaspora wars. It gets weird.
Oh yeah, I hate diaspora wars on Twitter. It gets nasty over there.
Everyone's Black. Like, calm down.
Yeah.
So you guys are doing a lot.
It
gets nasty. So
that was like, seeing diaspora wars on Twitter was like one of my first experiences with really seeing like intra-Black conflict,
intercommunal,
never
like,
saw it
racism.
like,
it's weird.
I experienced like tribalism when I was living abroad, but like to see it online and like to see the thoughts come out, it's like kind of crazy.
It's weird to see. I'll even say the weirdest part is like the disdain people have for Black Americans who don't live in the United States. It's like they'll say things. I'm like, I didn't even know this about myself. Thank you so much for involving me, and I didn't know I was a. And then you'll read the insult. It's like, didn't know I was those things. Thank you so much.
And
so
it's like they won't even live in America, and they'll be hating on African Americans.
Never met one. Never met an African
from outside of the club.
You can't even get in. Never even met an African American a day in their life, but have all the opinions. So it's just like a lot of times they sound like white people. I hate to say that. Well, I'll say they sound like racist white people. A lot of times they sound like racist white people who pick up their news about Black people off of the news or off of stereotypes. They don't actually know a Black person. So it's just very like, it's disheartening to be on that, to see that on Twitter. So like you said,
I saw it a lot during COVID.
And I feel like also Donald Trump, let's get to that. So I feel like Donald Trump, you know Monty, my friend Monty, I was talking to Monty, and Monty said to me, Donald Trump in the 2016 election did something to our country that it's like irreparable damage. Like it's almost for sure. Like we entered like a whole new matrix. He set us back like 200 years. Yeah, like literally. We're like, people weren't. I don't want to sound crazy. People were not this racist prior to him getting elected. Am I right?
I don't think they were this explicitly racist. Yeah, okay. I think a lot of people felt that they had to keep their comments and thoughts
because their president was Black.
Exactly. They thought there was some decorum, but Donald Trump showed people like, who cares about decorum?
We out here wilding, nigga. Like that's literally what he said. That's the energy
he brought. Yeah,
which is scary because I don't know. I've seen like I remember people. I'm not gonna say anyone's name, but I remember seeing people who like I would have never expected to like go full MAGA. Like, excuse me. Oh, that's how you really feel.
What about some of your Black brothers who are like some of the biggest MAGA supporters?
What scares me the most about so let me just say this on the camera. You cannot be a Black gay Republican. That doesn't even make sense. That's like you can't be a polka dotted zebra. Like that doesn't make sense. You don't make any sense. So like when I do meet a Black gay person who's also Republican, I get scared because that means either you're not 100% here with us. Like either you're not really here with us and there's a few screws missing, or was my dad always says you're a few coins short of $1, or you don't care about the rest of us, which is the same thing.
Right.
So I get scared when I meet those type, like, how are you and you're a MAGA? So like it's just little things like that where I'm like,
red flag.
That's not even a red flag. That is you are red. Yeah. That's you've removed you can't remove yourself. Like, I feel that way about Black Republicans. For you to be gay and Black and Republican, it's like I don't even know. Like I don't even know. Like that guy. Remember that guy who went to the GOP and he was like, it was like a summit or something, and they all started calling him the N-word, and he was gay, so he started telling jokes, and they like it just was like, what are you doing? Like, why are you even there? So I think I do think that it's important for Black conservative voices to be heard,
right?
Because I think that we also have to make that differentiation.
And I say this all the time, like, traditionally, yes, I have voted Democrat, but I'm not the most liberal person in the world. We always talk about this. Like, I wish there was a third party.
No, by no means.
I feel like I'm moderate sometimes,
I don't think I'm a moderate. I think that I have common sense.
Yeah.
I don't even like putting a label on it. And I think sometimes like...
But I feel like the parties make it label-y.
Yes.
Where it's like, you're so far left and liberal, you're so far right and conservative. That's why I say I'm moderate, because I feel like I'm a perspectivist. I feel like I'm able to see the viewpoint of anyone and understand their viewpoint and be practical. I feel like that's
I said, common sense is so, what I think is scariest about like this whole polarization of the parties is like, they almost make you feel like, do you want to be a tightwad or do you want to be like a free doing anything ass person? It's like, hold on a second. Like,
right.
Why do I have
it's like anything or nothing.
Yeah, it's like, I can't just like, be in my house, like having a good time. It's like, no, you got to be wild as hell or like, you're not allowed to do anything. It's like, okay, hold on. Yeah. We need to discuss this and have real conversations. I don't think, even right now with the election, like, I don't even know what I'm about to do.
Yeah, neither do I.
I'm like,
And I think a lot of Americans feel like that, especially our generation. I think our generation has lost hope and faith in politics at this point.
3 years. I tell you all the time, and I'm out of here.
Yeah.
If it doesn't get any better in 3 years, I have to leave this country. I cannot leave it.
I think Black people moving out of the country is a very real idea right now. We see it happening in real time.
We went to Colombia.
Yeah.
When I went to Colombia and I saw how many expat Black families there were and how many expat Black communities there are, just in Colombia alone. I'm not even talking about, obviously there's hundreds in Brazil. And seeing that Black people left here well before civil rights movement and like was actually finished, that inspired me in a way where I was like, wait a minute. Because, like you think about your ancestors and you're like, they fought. So like you almost feel like
that you want to keep the legacy going, obligated, and keep the fight going.
But then when you look at other people who come from the same diaspora and they're like, child, I had to get up out of there. And it's like, wait a minute. The options are so much larger than your stratosphere of what you're exposed to every single day. Once you leave the country and you see how Black people are living other places, which brings me back to the conversation earlier. I'm like, maybe they're, but I actually see some of the points that people have about Black America when I'm like, okay, maybe we do need to be more exposed to other things and like leave our spaces so that we can get another perspective.
At the end of the day, I am so incredibly proud of what our ancestors did. We literally pulled ourselves out of slavery. We corroborated with, ally white people to like Quakers. Literally like pull ourselves out of it. We advocated and fought for every right that we have on this land. And I think that we have seen freedom in a lens that many Black people around the world have not been able to experience freedom. And with that freedom, I think comes freedom of choice. Yep. And I think freedom of choice means now we can make that executive decision. Real decision. And be like, okay, you know what? I want to leave now. But Bingo. It's because we've walked ourselves out as far as we can go. We can see the sea. And now it's like, okay, Bingo. It's okay if I want to leave this country. Actually, I don't feel like committed to the cause as much anymore. After I told you this, after they rolled back race-based admissions process with affirmative action for college, admissions, I said, I'm done. Right. Because that was something that our ancestors fought for so strongly. They went out there in March and made sure we got our affirmative action. The moment they rolled that back, I'm like, I'm not going outside to protest that. And I'm not trying to sound ignorant or anything, but it's the fact that like it was a Supreme Court decision. Well, so it's like a decision at that magnitude. What am I supposed to do with that now?
I say to you all the time, I am not my grandparents. Child, I ain't going outside and getting hoes for nobody. I will leave. I will save my money up.
I will take my USD. Okay.
It's no reason for like I think about that all the time. It's like, child, let me get up out of here.
And I think that's a privilege that we can say that we have now. And it's like we can literally take our strong currency, go anywhere in the world,
and start a life somewhere else. And that's important. So I think with that being said, I was going to also say, like, I think that Black Americans have come so far that I almost don't want to. That's what I think. It's like I almost don't want to leave because I'm kind of just like, we are not completely, but we're in charge of our own spaces. We're kind of in charge of our own narrative.
Yeah, we did our big one with that.
I think for the first time ever, I will say, especially with the advent of media in the past 10 years, we are in charge of our own narrative. Like, look at what happened with George Floyd. Like, I was talking to my grandmother the other day, and literally I told her, I was like, never in history has like a movement started that quickly. She was like, no, she was alive during the civil rights movement. She was like, the civil rights movement. I said, girl, they shot those men within months of each other, and niggas was burning down cities in days. Do you understand? Like, George Floyd was shot. They started burning cities down. The internet spread the word way quicker than a newspaper ever could.
Right. So it was a global experience.
It was a global. They were in Germany marching for us.
George Floyd.
That Black people are in charge of their narrative in such a way where they didn't even know. Like, we didn't even know how big of that a moment that actually was. Obviously, it was horrible. He got shot. That's horrible. He got murdered. There's a bunch of different things that happened during that time period. Literally, somebody was on his chest. Like, there's a bunch of different people who went through things with the police. However, on the flip side, Black people were able to turn a phrase and really change the course of the way you speak on Blackness and the way you speak on Black people. We took that moment and we were able to
mobilize
and address. Now we haven't addressed everything, but we were able to address little things and how you speak on Blackness. So I think that was like very, very, very monumental.
Things that should have been happened started happening,
and I love that.
They were renaming Aunt Jemima's syrup. They were.
I will say this. Watch this. I saw a video the other day that made me laugh. But she was like, "We told y'all to stop killing us, and y'all renamed it syrup."
Right.
It's like,
but,
okay,
but there was a bunch of things like renaming
brands,
products. A lot of companies opened up diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, things that should have been existed, but because of George Floyd, it was a catalyst.
Exactly.
And I even say like our Black Lives Matter movement inspired like even NSAR's movement in Nigeria when they said end police brutality. It was an entry point to a very large conversation. So I am very appreciative and blessed of like the technology, like you said, being able to spread the message today
way quicker.
However, I will say I still think like our narrative as Black people is still very much so compromised by media.
Absolutely.
Until Black people have more equity in terms of like owning these media channels and owning these media aggregators like record labels and publishing companies and TV companies, until we have like full equity and inclusion with those
the things that we have
parts of media,
right,
we still will be at a disadvantage when it comes to telling our stories on TV.
I think even more importantly, with Black people, at least currently, what I would like for us to start doing, like you said, is start creating our own versions of media and being in charge of the narrative. But not just that. I started that publication because I wanted to highlight good music. I was like, right now, I feel like because of who owns the Black urban music spaces, or even just music in general, they're not putting musical excellence out there. They're putting like any old body. I started Chant Magazine because I wanted to, obviously, I've always worked in the media space. So I would get like these DMs, I would get these crazy messages like, can you post my song? I said, let me just turn this into a blog. So I had started a blog that just had every week we post a bunch of people and their music that was actually good. And so we can focus on, like I said before, owning Black music, owning music that was focused on good music, not just things that were trendy. This is pre TikTok, because I feel like it's even harder now because TikTok makes things trendy. But this was pre TikTok, and I was like focused on trying to bring light to artists who don't get their shine. You know what I mean? So like that's just important. Black people need to bring more to the table when it comes to creating our own media spaces so we can control the narrative about us. Just like what I was saying we were doing film wise, and we were talking about our message, we were able to control the narrative. So it is imperative that we do that.
So I definitely like branching off of like what we were saying, like equity for Black media owners is very important. But then we talked about, moving outside of the country. Do you feel like African Americans, is it even worth us building up media platforms here when we see how white people have done us time and time again? There's always like instances of theft. There's always instances of us being like they'll try and tear us down when we build something. When you look like Black Wall Street, is it worth us building these publications here? Or do you think there should be this Black exodus where we leave the country, we go to Africa or South Africa, wherever the diaspora, comes from, whether we're in Brazil, whether we're in Africa, and go build out there into those infrastructures to those Black populations? Or do you think like we're like winning by still being the minority here trying to build these platforms?
So I think there's a two-part answer, because I think one, when I say build platforms, you have to also remember like the internet is worldwide. So like if I start a publication, I live in Brazil, that doesn't make me not a Black American. And that doesn't mean that Black Americans who live here are not going to tap into my space or tap into my perspective. If anything, it makes me more worldly. So I think you have to keep that in mind. Like when you're starting a platform, don't just aim for Black Americans, aim for Black people. Aim for everybody if you want, go for that. And then two, I think the most important thing, if you live in the United States, and this is going to sound real crazy because I think people are always trying to get a piece, like, like trying to make space and make room. My thought process is, if I'm trying to make something big happen here, especially in the media space, my point is for a white person to buy it, and then I can leave again. and go build again. I do not.
A lot of Black people would be like, Black people always end up selling out and
We
like
have to.
selling something that we started.
We have to.
Yeah.
Generational wealth is more important than actually creating little media podcasts and things like that. Like,
so some people would say, okay, so you're feeding into capitalism by
whatever.
that mindset.
I'm an American. I don't know what else people want me to say. Like, I have to live here. Generational wealth is important, and like,
I also recognize like this is where the big dollars and big bucks are, and if somebody wants to buy me out, I can sell it and go build something bigger.
That's what I'm trying to say. Like,
Yeah.
It is imperative that we recognize I'm playing chess, not checkers. And it's imperative that we recognize, okay, I built this platform up. It has this amount of followers. This amount of money wants to be in it. There's investors now coming in. And somebody said to me, if I owned the Shade Room, and if I was Angie, I would have sold that years ago. 500 million, get me out of here. You take it over. Like, that's where my brain is. And then I would have built another platform. You get what I mean?
Yeah.
That's at least for me, that's the narrative where if I'm not trying to build things so that white people can steal it from me. They want to steal it from me, give me the money so that I can go bring that money back to my community. So I think there's two ways to look at it. You could build something specifically for Black people, or you could build something up so much that somebody can buy it, and then you can still build things for Black people. Like, but you have to like make a decision. Yeah. Do you want to like be in the trenches, or do you want to build something up where the product's sellable and now people want to buy it? And I know people think it's like, oh, you're selling out. It's like, how else do you get money? How else do you rise up to the occasion? How else do you attain luxury and wealth? If your goal is to be colloquial and be local and be a tangible, accessible thing, you want to be your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, be my guest. If that's your goal, if that's where you feel special, if being special is being local to you and being tangible to your community, I love that. Yeah. If you want to be global, and you want to be bigger than, there's some things you're going to have to do.
Yeah, see, I go back and forth. Like, I definitely agree with what you said. Like, I recognize that, like, white people own the majority of the wealth in America. So it's always about how can we figure out a way to get the money out of their hands into our hands. I understand that point. But I also think I'm an optimist in a sense. Like, I want Black Americans to have a huge exodus from America, and we all move back to Africa, and Tyler Perry and Lee Daniels start investing money into Nollywood, which is one of the biggest entertainment markets in the world, and start building film studios out there. And the reason why I feel that way is because I feel like sometimes with African Americans in our experience, because we are the minority on this land with white people, it's like a guinea pig. It's like you're running in a circle on that wheel repetitively, expecting different results.
Like insanity.
And that is truly the definition of insanity. And I feel like we need to be doing something revolutionary outside of the box at this point. And I think it doesn't involve living amongst white people. So that's how I feel.
I hear that.
When it comes to like Black media space and like owning the narrative and controlling the narrative.
So, the only thing I have a difference of opinion is I don't think we need to go to Africa. No, I think we need to be somewhere else with more of the diaspora. Although Africans are an extension of African Americans, we need to be with other people who have experienced chattel slavery, and we need to be.
That's what I'm saying. Like, if all of us, like
I hear you.
Not necessarily like Caribbeans, because like to me, Caribbeans, like that's their land.
But that's why I said when we went to Colombia and I saw expat Black people living there, I said, okay, these people figured it out. If we could all move to a country that has Black people living there already, majority, like if we moved to a Brazil,
that's
if we
moved
to
like
a
Brazil
Belize,
earlier,
you get what I mean? If we moved to I'm just using random countries, but we moved to a Belize, we moved to a Brazil, if we moved to a Colombia where Black people are the majority number, or at least mixed, we would be able to see ourselves in a way that I don't think the narrative's not controlled there. I feel like even if we went to Africa, and even they see us in a certain light. So I think there's even in their perspective on us, sometimes, I hate to say this, is very white. It's very white driven. It's white media driven.
I think that's kind of a generalization. And the only
specifically, I'm saying like Nigeria, like specifically in the Nigerian scope of the way they look at us, they get their news about Black people off of TV.
But I will say, like, I feel like the Nigerian entertainment scene, like they're trying to like
Westernized.
diversify and like get more of us involved.
No, I see
Like,
it. They're
you know,
definitely trying to westernize completely.
even with the Nollywood movies,
I
like
just
now they're
watched
starting
it.
to cast African Americans
I
for
saw
it.
that
So
one that just came out with that girl where she's like the main character, but she's like in like an Afroverse where it's like different African men and she's on a college campus. So I do see it and I do appreciate that. I was just thinking more so in the broad
because I think we still
spectrum.
got to promote unity. Like the only way
Absolutely.
forward is if Black people unify globally, because we've been separated by white people
Absolutely.
historically.
I think that
So
is the most obviously that's the most important message. Black people need to be unified. I was just speaking from a perspective of I think it's hard to move like you said it's a mass exodus. It's hard for us to all mobilize to another country and
like, is America even worth our time anymore?
but it's like not for nothing. Stay with me. This is gonna sound kind of fucked up, but like I wouldn't want to be born Black anywhere else on the planet.
No, for sure. I'm blessed to be African
I'm
American.
blessed to be here.
Yeah.
I see the way some people live in other countries. So like I don't necessarily know if America's not quote unquote worth my time. Am I saying that because I live here and I know the privileges of living here?
Right. Even me to say, is America worth our time?
Dude,
That's from
that's
a
a
level of
privilege.
privilege
That's what
that
I'm
I
trying to
can
say.
say
Like,
that.
am
Yeah.
are we looking at it from a perspective of like, this is a privilege and I live in a privileged space. I could have quote unquote more privileges.
Yeah.
Or am I saying it because I'm actually miserable? When I look at some of the other countries, I'm like, they're dealing with some of the same problems we have, but like they may not even have running water. Or they may not even have some of the same city infrastructures that we have. You know what I mean?
But I am a firm believer. If, like, for instance, like my goal in life is to like get super rich and move to Africa,
Love
because
that.
when you take your USD abroad anywhere, it just goes so much further. So like we are privileged when we have this level of conversation, but also recognizing that. And I also say this because like I have people who hit me up from like Nigeria and Ghana all the time. They're like, "Oh, send money for school fees and whatever, whatever,"
Absolutely.
and they think like I'm living like the
This
most
lavish life.
lavish, luxurious life. And I'm like thinking to myself, I'm like, everything here is really expensive. And that's not oppression Olympics,
Oh,
but
that's a
it's the fact that
perspective
like
thing.
that's the fact that like people think like you come here and you just like accomplish the American dream and it's like so doable. But like the way that politics and our economy are moving, like it looks like America might implode any day. So I just feel like,
I hear what you're saying in that regard. Then I definitely do think like we need to find somewhere to go and like do it. But see, then we're just like we're getting into conversations like Marcus Garvey. Like we've now moved into Marcus Garvey territory, and everybody called him crazy. So like I think he was onto something. I don't necessarily know if he knew what he was talking about when he just moved everyone to another country, but Marcus Garvey had that idea of like Black people exodusing to Liberia,
yeah,
and nowadays you do have a very large group of Black Americans who moved to Liberia and
moving to Ghana.
are descendants of, you know what I mean, of reformed quote unquote Africans who are now African again, who've been there long enough. So I think there is a conversation to that. Do you know what I mean? Like I just think in general, Black people need to leave the country. The only reason why I object to moving specifically to Africa is because the laws in Africa just do not protect all gay people. Like there are pockets I can say where they might be locally safe, but like someone who's visibly queer is not safe on the continent of Africa. And I know people will be like, that's not true, but like
I do think that's a broad statement though, because there are some countries like was in Burkina Faso.
Yeah, but Burkina Faso's at war 24/7. I read the
That, like,
laws.
okayed.
I read the laws and I
Yeah.
see like the death rate and the death toll. And like people are still very much being murdered for being gay in Africa. So I'm not gonna like pretend or say things. I'm not trying to hurt anyone's feelings, but like the reality is there is still very much like we even talked about Black Americans. There's still very much an issue with Black Americans and gay people. So like there is a space that there needs to be a conversation. We see it. We see it all the time. We see like random activists who are gay and trying to change the infrastructure of how gay people or queer people are looked at in Africa, and they're not protected. Some of them get attacked. You know what I mean? Like the most notable person in Africa is Bob Risky. And we saw how the police treated Bob Risky when they came to her house. So like there's even that conversation. I think there's room for them to grow in that space. And like you said, maybe Americans coming there would change how they viewed things. But
because movements are rising
exactly
across Africa in support of LGBT rights.
Absolutely.
So, at the end of the day, like
in a couple years, I'll
realizing that
revisit
they're
it.
still evolving as well. Like
Exactly.
we're speaking from a Western perspective,
We're westernized.
where you even have the freedom to be gay,
exactly.
like quite literally.
Quite literally.
So movements are happening, things are changing, but it is important to think about like, okay,
Safety.
Pan-Africanism, does it include every Black person?
And that's kind of what I'm saying. We're like the safety and continuity of Black people. I'm not putting a label on anything. What does that look like? And then how do we affirm that somebody's living so I don't have a husband. So these things wouldn't really, I could probably move and just have no problems. But like somebody who has a husband and 2 kids, how does that life translate into that exodus that we're speaking on? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't affect me. I'm going to move as a single man and be perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Somebody who has kids and like they're calling them 2 dads and stuff like that, and they want their marriage legally recognized. We're having complicated conversations. Even that's something to think about. Not just that, it's just like handicap accessible. Like, what do people with mental illnesses, like there's so much, like we say all the time, like living in America really is a privilege because there's so many things that are accommodated for that we don't necessarily think about. You know what I mean? Like we don't necessarily even think about it until we're having conversations about Black people making a mass exodus to countries that may not mirror what we experience every single day and what that looks like.
Right.
So I'm just kind of like, I'm reluctant, but I told you 3 years I'm out. Yeah. I can speak for myself. 3 years. If this doesn't get better or like I see some sort of change in this next election, I have to go because this just seems like we're like playing like a like you said, it's like a ticking time bomb. I'm like looking around like, who are we gonna piss off next? And like, when is the world gonna go to war with the United States? I have no time for that. I don't want to be here for that.
Right.
At least that's speaking for me. How do you feel about that?
We're 100% on the same page. America is lucky, and it's a privilege that America can even have me within its borders right now, because I'll take my talents.
I know that's right.
Outside of America, like LeBron said, I'm taking my talents to South Beach. I will take my talents outside of America. I'm not scared to swipe that passport.
Not scared to swipe. You already know.
Okay.
Flights
booked.
Catching flights, baby. I'm trying to be up out of here. Like, so no, I think
catching flights, not feelings.
Not feelings. I was gonna say, I think even in that, like, Black people are, again, that's another thing. Like, I think we're so beautiful and loud and boisterous that I'm actually fearful of what happens when we go to another country, because we take up space. Even though like we don't think of it as taking up space, we are a presence. So I also think about culturally, how would we affect, does that make sense? Like the cultural stratosphere of another country, how do we affect how they view themselves, and how do we affect the culture of another country? So like if we were all to leave and go to like a Nigeria, or we're to all leave and go to like a Ghana, or all leave and go to like you get what I mean? Like just that would literally be very, very like, it might be polarizing.
Yeah, it could
on both ends.
Yeah. And then also like being respectful of like other spaces. We don't want to like be the gentrifiers. Although I will say I think it's impossible for Black people to gentrify Africa. And the reason I say that is because we literally descended from that land. So if anything, it's just like us having our full circle moment and coming back to.
Okay, so I think I'm using gentrified in 2 different ways, because I'm thinking like, I absolutely can see us going there and changing things and shaking shit up.
I will say though, the influx of like new tourism in places like Ghana has like driven up the prices in the economy for things. It's like so expensive to live in Ghana now. Like the average.
I was reading that the other day.
Yeah, the average Ghanaian 10 years from now, they might not be able to buy a piece of land in their own home country. And it's because, tourism has caused a spike in the economy. And it's like, it's a double-edged sword. It's like you want to heighten the awareness in Africa, but you also want to make sure that natives that are local to that country are not, at the bottom of that totem pole, and that they could see what it's like to own a piece of land.
That's not even something I even thought. Like, watch this. And there's the American. Didn't even think about that. I thought about going somewhere and buying cheap land. So I think even that conversation is like I said, the culture of how we even think.
Right.
Because of the way this country came. This is stolen land. The way this country even came together was like controversial. So I don't even think that even crosses my mind of going somewhere and disrupting their economy, essentially.
Yeah.
With that being said, I mean, I just encourage all Black people, like, get out there.
Get out there,
Get on a
get your
plane.
passport,
Get on a plane.
and see the world outside of American borders.
You have
I think
to.
that is like the common theme.
It's
for
beautiful
today's
to see Black
conversation.
people not here. Like, not that Black people here aren't beautiful, but it's like, it's amazing. You know, I told you, like, we went to Colombia. I remember before you landed, you called me and was like, what is it like? I was like, the way it's promoted on TV is if there's no Black people here. Then when you got there, we're everywhere.
Yeah.
I think that's so intricate. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's so purposeful to not show Black people to other Black people,
right?
Which is really strange and kind of sinister a little bit.
And
like,
it's an elaborate scheme.
It's an elaborate scheme. It's like, I was going to quote Real Housewives where she was like, I think Todd put together a scheme, but like that's scary to me. But when it's so sinister, like I told you, one of the statistics I had learned was like the largest population of Black people outside of Africa is in Brazil.
Yeah, exactly.
But whenever I Google Brazilians,
they're gonna show you like, somebody's light skin or white with like
a
blue
big
eyes
and
yeah.
a big butt
that they are putting out there for us to
affirming
consume.
to. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I will say, common theme of the conversation today was Black people need to get their passports and get out of America to see what's outside of the borders.
Yes.
You know, I think that's so important.
Yeah, it's really important. I think Black people, but I also think like we're looking at that right now. There's like an influx of Black people, maybe not moving, but like definitely traveling.
Black travelers.
Black travelers is huge right now.
Yeah.
Like,
if you look up the hashtags,
like we're everywhere.
Shaking.
We're moving and doing.
We still got to encourage it more. And the only reason I say that is just because like Americans, just not just Black Americans, but Americans in general, like we're the least amount of passport holders compared to other nations.
Because we also think like, I hate saying this, but like the propaganda of America is strong. Like they make you think that like this is the greatest country on the planet, and like it is a really large country. So I'm not gonna lie. Like if you never left the United States, just make sure you travel to every state.
Yeah, and I was gonna say travel is very expensive for Americans. Mm-hmm. Even if you want to travel domestically, it's expensive compared to if you go outside the country. If you want to move about Europe, if you want to go from London to Paris, it's so cheap. But here, if you want to go from New York to Miami, it could be pricey, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, not if you're on Spirit. But.
Right. Spirit, Frontier, they be coming through.
Spirit, Frontier, $10 flight. It's like scary, rickety, but you're going to get there.
So with that being said, what can viewers expect from you coming up over the next couple of weeks?
So the next couple of weeks, I'm going to drop a single. Haven't decided which one yet. I'm going to drop a visual because I have a couple of visuals already shot. Did a couple visuals a couple weeks ago. And then I am planning to drop my album. And then I have a couple live shows I'm going to do in LA. So it's just going to be a nice little up, rev up for my fans and like people who follow me. And I'm excited to share the journey with them. I'm also planning a vlog. So every single day of like the more build of this album and like the rollout, I want to just show people step by step and day by day what it looks like. That's what I'm going to be doing.
Okay, nice. We're excited.
I'm excited too. Yeah.
New content coming soon, loading.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that when people watch this interview, whether they watch it today, tomorrow, 10 years from now, they'll be able to look back at this and recognize you as somebody who's going to do some really impactful things in this world. You already have, but as far as your music, taking it to like those legendary levels.
I'm excited.
I'm glad that we could host this conversation today.
Yes, and there'll be more. I'll be back, guys.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you guys for tuning in. And that is Tricks of the Trade.
Tricks of the Trade.